this is the roadmap for today. We are going to be talking about resilience. What exactly is resilience? What does that word mean? Where does it come from? We're going to look at 4 key aspects of resilience, really breaking it down to sizable bits, bite-sized, that the Joe Blocks on the streets, who is not a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a mental health nurse or a mental professional, can relate to. What does it really mean, and what's the nitty-gritty? What are the components of resilience? And of course, how can you build resilience? So the 6 R's of resilience is the different things that can be done to actually build resilience. And then how do you build it? How do you support your children, your grandchildren, your mentees, the people who are coming after you? How do we support those people to become resilient? Because it really, I think that with the figures that is sure we know of, as a mental professional, with the figures that we see regarding the mental health profile of children, and it's not just in this country, it's not just in the Western world, it's across the nations of the world. We're in a state in which we need to do something. We're in a state in which we need to equip our young people, our children, with the skills that they need, with the mental skills that they need to navigate an ever-changing world. And I'm hoping that tonight's meeting will in some way contribute to that. And the other question we're going to hope to answer is that, how does faith help with resilience? What does faith have a role? And if it does have a role, what's the role? And then, as in the usual practice, we will usually end with a slide that shows us actionable tools, resources and resources that we can use and take home with us, and then we can make reference to subsequently. So those are the things that we will be getting through to this evening. I'm just checking okay. Thank you for everyone who's made comments and told us where you are from. Right, so it's going to change. Right. So I came across this quote this morning, and I was really very excited about it. It says, "We are stronger than we think." And this was Professor Neil Greenberg, soon consultant psychiatrist, professor of psychiatry. He was writing a response on behalf of the Royal College of Psychiatry soon after the 2017 London terrorist attacks. And obviously, the Royal College of Psychiatrists being the body that coordinates the training of psychiatrists and a well-respected body in terms of mental health regulation and mental health training in the UK. The college was given a response to that event, to that traumatic event. And the thing that Professor Greenberg said was that we are stronger than we think. And that's the way I want to open on resilience tonight, because many times when people talk about resilience, people think about it's some sort of mystical thing that we can't get grasp of, or that some people have it and some people don't have it. But really, I want to start from the place of we are actually inherently resilient. We've been built to be able to last. We've been built emotionally, psychologically, to actually be able to take on the challenges and the stresses of life and to still be able to thrive. And I think it's very important to lay that foundation. That's the place I would really like us to start tonight, that we are actually built, we are inborn, we are born inborn and built to be able to be resilient and to be able to face the challenges of life and still thrive, and to use them as stepping stones. That's the way we've been made up. Of course, there are other things that come into play, but that's the way we are. And with that in mind, I'm just then going to show us a video. I did say that I was going to show one of the videos I'm going to be showing tonight is from the Every Mind Matters campaign that took place soon after we came out of the lockdown, and I had the privilege of taking part in that campaign. So I'm going to change now and go on to a different screen. So let's move that out of the way. Hello, I'm Dr. T. Could I just confirm that everybody can hear that video?
Yes, I can hear that.
All right, brilliant. Thank you. So, Ayodele Ajay.
Hello, I'm Dr. T. Ayodele Ajay. The last 18 months has been a very difficult time for all of us. We have all experienced a variety of emotions, and we know that this can impact on our mental well-being. It is very important that we look after our mental well-being, and there are little things that we can all do that can make a big difference to cope with life's challenges. Here are some examples of some of the things that others have done to help themselves.
Little things that I've been doing to make myself and my colleagues feel better. With regards to our colleagues, for me myself, I found executing a training plan of running every day, going and doing some weights in the garden, doing an extra couple of press-ups, that was my thing. And I could measure that and see how I was getting better. Because when you feel out of control, it's really important to grab onto something that you can actually control, no matter how small that might be. And that worked for me, and hopefully it will work for others.
It's completely understandable that people have been feeling stressed and also overwhelmed. That's something that I've even experienced for myself. When there's so many things happening at once, it tends to feel quite overwhelming. So something that really works for me, when I catch myself in that moment of worrying about so many different things, I just pause and literally just take a deep breath in, take a deep breath out, do that about 3 times, and it helps me to come back to the present. And that's something that I find really works effectively for me.
You can find out what works for you by going to the Every Mind Matters website and getting a free NHS approved mind plan. It's such a great tool and easy to use. The tips in the mind plan have been chosen by clinical experts to help you find what works for you. Get your personalized mind plan by visiting nhs.uk/Every Mind Matters.
All right, good. So let's stop the share.
How to get them.
Oops. We don't want to hear about Grammarly. Right. Thank you, Grammarly. Not today. Right. Okay. So let's go back to. So, any thoughts on those videos? Any take-home messages? I mean, I've typed my own in the chat. My own take-home message from that video is that, for me, resilience is being able to concentrate on something little that you can change, no matter what else is going on. No matter how little that is, being able to say that this is something that I can actually change, and putting your mind to change that, taking that little action, no matter how small, that will be the take-home message for me. And of course, at the risk of being self-serving, obviously, I also encourage everyone to go on to the not living life to the full now, Every Mind Matters website. I cannot recommend that website enough. I think it's a treasure load of mental health information, and it's got a lot of information on there. It's like I call it an open university, mental health open university, and it's all free, and it's by it's in collaboration with the NHS, so you can be sure that you will get credible information. Yeah, right. Yeah. Mr. D says he believes that the mind is the bedrock of everything in us. I couldn't agree more that our minds are very important, and if we don't take care of them, our lives can go in the wrong direction. So, any other thoughts about about that video? Any thoughts? Anything that strikes you? Anything that you don't agree with? Okay, somebody said here, or anything that you agree with that resonates or that you don't agree with. Okay, somebody says, "Sir, it's human being. If it's human being, you can't control, like your wife or children. At that point, what one can you control?" That's a very valid point. Thank you for raising it. And that's something that, interestingly, we are going to address later on. So that's a very valid question, because we are going to carry out an exercise that actually talks about the locus of the circle of control, because the reality of life is that there are certain things we can't control. And what do you do at that point? So thank you very much for that point. We are going to address it. It's certainly a valid point. Thank you, Dr. Adesina, for that. Any other thoughts? Any other thoughts on the video? Okay, right. I'm just going to change back, and then we go back to our presentation. Right. So going back to resilience, resilience is actually a Latin word. It's originally from a Latin word that means resilia. That's the word it's from, and it means to jump back or recoil. So it's like you pull a spring or you blow a balloon, and then after you let out the air, it comes back to its original form. So it's almost that's exactly what the root word is from. And in the same way, resilience in the modern day time, in terms of mental resilience, is the art of being able to bounce back or to bounce back after an adversity, after a threat, or after a challenge. After some sort of mental challenge. The other thing we do know about resilience is that it's also from the root. That root was resilia. It's also related to another word called salia. Salia is to leap. It means to leap. And interestingly, I didn't know this before until I started researching resilience, that actually words like sally, somersault, are actually related to that because they're all very sprinkly words. So sprinkly words like sally, like somersaults, are actually from the root word salia and is related to resilience, which is quite something that I found out myself. But so really, resilience is a capacity to be able to bounce back, to be able to return after a period of adversity. In terms of other objects, it's about being able to recover your shape or the size after a period of deformation, or an ability to be able to recover or adjust easily to misfortune or to change. So really, basically, it's really about what do we do with change? How do we manage change such that the change doesn't crush us? And I think that also it sits very nicely with the WHO, World Health Organization definition of World Health Organization definition of mental health, because it says that mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual is able to fulfill their potential. They are able to cope with the normal stresses of life. So that part of coping with the normal stresses of life is where resilience will fall. There are other things that the World Health Organization says about mental health, but I think that resilience sits very nicely in that part of the fact that one is able to cope with the normal stresses of life. So what else do we know about resilience? I've said it's an ability to adapt well to stress, to trauma, to tragedy or threats, and to bounce back in difficult situations. And the other thing that we know about resilience is this. Previously people used to think that there are the resilient group and the non-resilient group, that some people are just born resilient and other people are born non-resilient. But current research is actually showing that it's not actually the case, that what happens with resilience is that it's a complex combination of a number of things. One, there is a genetic part of things, the way the genes we inherited from our parents and our foreparents and our forebears. There's also the environmental factor that plays into it. There's also the way that our brain has been wired perpetually or progressively over time because of the experiences that we've had in life. So for instance, people who have had trauma perpetually may have developed anxiety as a result, and so they may have been wired in a way that makes them expect almost the worst outcomes from life. So all of those are things that so resilience is not just a simple thing about, oh, you are resilient, I'm not. It's actually a complex interplay, and there are things that we can do to build our resilience. B, please do check that I think somebody's unmuted. Right. So I think that's a very important point to make, that resilience is a complex interplay between genetics, the way our brain has been wired. And the good news is that we now know that actually neuroplasticity teaches us that basically that the brain is malleable, the brain is flexible, that you can. So basically we can rewire our brains, and that's a good thing. That those circuits don't have to stay with us all our lives, because there's something we can actually do to change them. And hopefully some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight will be of benefit in terms of helping us to build our resilience. So this is by the American Psychiatric Association. That's their definition of what resilience is. And this was during COVID, or just peri-COVID. This was May 2022. Right, so still talking about the complexity of resilience. We've said earlier that it's an inborn trait. So really, we are naturally built to be able to be resilient. But the other thing is that it's complex interaction between our stress responses and also our immune responses and our genetics. So what are the things how do you know whether you are resilient or not? What are the features that give it away? What are the things that make me think, okay, maybe, what are the things that you can start looking at? What are the indices? What are the parameters? What are the things that you can look at in your life and really assess where you are? And this is not just it's not an exam. It's really about knowing where one is so that one can then improve, or one can put things in place to actually become more resilient. One of the features that has been known about people who are resilient is that they have a survivor mentality. Survivor, not as a victim, but the fact that I survived that. So I've gone through that trauma, and the reality is that everyone who is on this call tonight is a survivor. I want to say that again, that everyone who is on this call tonight is a survivor, because this is 2023 and you lived through 2020, 2021, and 2022. You lived through the pandemic, all the immunization, all the lockdown, all the mental difficulties, the physical difficulties, the hospital admissions. Some of us experienced losses during that period. All of that, despite that, you are here, so you're a survivor. And we know that people who are resilient have a survival mentality in terms of, I actually won the race. I am here. The fact that I'm here, I'm still standing, I'm still breathing, means that I already have achieved something. They don't see themselves as a victim that, oh God, look at what's happened to me. Look at all the things that I've gone through. But rather than look at all the things that I've gone through, they actually see that, look at all the things that I won, and I'm still here. So there's a survival mentality in that regard. The other thing is that they are effective with their emotional regulation. Emotional regulation is really about being in touch with the feelings and the emotions that is going through for you per time, and being able to modulate that according to the situation in your environment. So basically, you are a team. This is just a very simplistic illustration. You're at a team meeting, somebody says something that really aggravates you and annoys you. You don't go about punching the air or throwing punches or being aggressive towards them, because you realize that, okay, that's annoyed me, but obviously there's a way I can put across my thoughts in a way that is civil, in a way that is respectful and professional. So that's a simple way to really, so it's about being able to be in touch with what's going on for you, your emotion per time, but also being able to modulate and regulate that emotion to fit the need of the hour. So, and that's a skill that we can teach our children. In fact, I think that that's one of the main skills that we can teach our children in terms of being able to become more resilient, to be in touch, one, with their emotions, but also to be able to regulate those emotions. Because even some of us, I mean, I'm in my 5th or 6th decade of life now. Yeah, I think it's the 6th one, right? And the reality is that even despite the fact that I'm now thoroughly a middle-aged man, sometimes emotions can still, and with all the psychiatry training I've got, sometimes with emotions can still throw a curveball at us. Talk more of children and adolescents and young adults. So one of the things that we can help in helping our children to build their resilience is to help them to identify their emotions, to name their emotions, and to actually regulate it. And there's an exercise we are going to go to very shortly to do that. So the other thing is that we do know that people who are resilient are people who feel in control, feeling in control. And feeling in control is really about knowing the things that they can control. Dr. Adesina very rightly said that, how about when you cannot control the situation? That's true, that we can, there's no one who's in a situation in life where they can control all the variables. There's always a variable that we can control. And what we find from resilient people is that they tend to focus on what they can control. For instance, their response towards any adversity, their response towards the trauma, their response towards the threat, their narrative as a result of the threat, and their narrative as a result of the trauma. What's the story that we are telling ourselves from that experience? And what are we focusing on, the things that happen to us or the things that we can do to change the situation. And this is all neuroscience. It's all very well established. So internal control is that there are things that is within your control. External control are the ones that are not within your control. Internal control, for instance, your response towards the situation, being able to regulate your mood, being able to take the next step and the next step and the next step towards your desired outcome. The other thing about people that is common to people who are resilient is that problem-solving skills is something that is key. They look at problems and challenges rather than see the challenges of life as something that is coming to crush them or to take them out. They actually they look at challenges as an opportunity to be able to grow, but also look at challenges in terms of being able to solve problems, being able to look at the problems rationally, brainstorm, have idea showers, and look at the next things that they need to do that is within their control to change the situation. And the other thing is self-compassion. There is research, lots of studies out there that show that when things get hard, we tend to get hard on ourselves. I want to say that again, that there's research showing that when things get hard, rather than get soft on ourselves, the counterintuitive way is that it's counterintuitive, yet what happens is that we get hard on ourselves. A very typical example, when somebody is going through crisis, maybe it's a marital breakup, or maybe it's even a lockdown, or maybe they've lost their jobs, or maybe there is a family crisis, or maybe it's a bereavement, or maybe it's a financial crisis. What tends to happen almost intuitively is that the person begins to skip meals, they cut off from their social support. For people who they stop exercising, they worry more, and it's almost like their life loses structure. And the other thing that tends to happen, this is also backed up by research, is that for those who have physical or chronic health problems, adherence or compliance with medication and with interventions tend to dwindle and to take a nosedive at such periods. So basically, it's almost like at periods of crisis, one is doing, and of course, the other thing that commonly happens is that people begin to do things that are toxic to them. In terms of, some people begin to binge on alcohol or use illicit substances, all of which are not very helpful for physical health. And physical health and mental health are so very closely linked. So the message from all that ramble is this, that when life gets hard, please don't get hard on yourself. And the way not to get hard on yourself is to keep some structure and to pay attention to physical health and physical well-being. And so those are the things that we know about people who are resilient. And the final thing is that they reach out for social support. There are people who know that your resilience has a lot to do with your social support. That there's no one who can be an island of resilience. Our resilience has a lot to do with the support that we receive from other people, and that takes vulnerability. And one of the videos that we're going to look at tonight, the next video, which is coming up soon, is going to be about really trying to be very practical about this. Who is in your corner? Because in order to build your resilience and to improve in your resilience, it's important to know who is in your corner. It's important to know what they bring into your corner as well. It's not just who is there in your corner, but what do they bring? For instance, if you are going to somebody is meant to be a financier for encouragement, they might not be able to give you encouragement, but they might be able to finance. So if you go to them for encouragement when they are meant to be financiers, then it might be asking the wrong question from the right person. So it's important that we know who is in our corner, but to be also vulnerable enough to know that resilience, that everyone needs help at some point in their lives, and that part of building resilience is to be vulnerable enough to ask for help. I'm just going to, at this point, look quickly through. We all have a story to tell. I'm just looking through the chat to just see that we are still, lack of resilience is kind of assisted with mental health issues. Yes, withdrawing from people. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we do know that the thanks Mrs. Ladibolu for that. Yes, we do know that indeed resilience has a lot to do with mental health stability, and the more resilient we are, the more we can take on things. And but the good thing is that we can build that resilience. Some of us might have inherited genes that do not make us to be that inclined, but it's something that can always be worked on. So thanks for that point. So now let's come to, because like I said, the children are very hot on my agenda today. So there is a study that comes out of Mount Sinai, and it's been within the last 3 years since COVID, actually. And what they did was that they studied resilience in different age groups. They wanted to know what is it about children, what is it about adolescents, what is it about adults that actually supports resilience, and how can we help do what interventions are age appropriate to groups of people to help with building their resilience. And what did they find? They found that in children, that if we can help them with interventions that focus on problem solving, that focus on social support, and also meaning making, being able to say, okay, yes, you didn't turn in your assignment on time, and now you didn't score the grades, you didn't get the grades, or even that you didn't get into the university of your choice. Yes, that's true, that's happened, but what are the lessons from that? What's the meaning? And what are the take-home messages? What can be the possible positive outcomes from this? What are the disguised blessings from this? So each time that a child goes through that, if we can help them to unpack what looks like an adversity, to actually help them to make meaning out of it, we're helping them to build resilience. We're actually helping them to build their own resilience for the future. And that's something that they can then carry with them, pass on to their own children in a generational way. So that's for children, and of course, a solid bond with a caregiver. So parenting, a key part of helping our children build resilience lies with parents and of course grandparents, and it's creating that supportive environment, family stability. All of those are very key to helping young people, and this is according to the American Psychiatric Association that quoted this study from Mount Sinai. So what else do we know? Now moving on to adolescents. The thing we know about adolescents in terms of what helps them to build resilience are two things. That any intervention, that one, despite the fact that the period of adolescence is a period of transition, when they develop their own independence, and sometimes they almost come across like we've got it all made and we don't need any support. But the reality is that research does show, and we do know, parents know, that they need that support. So what sort of things can we do to help adolescents to build their resilience and to improve in their resilience? One is that any interventions that focus on peer relationships. So about helping them to look at their relationships, like what's this person bringing into your life? Where are they taking you to? Are they taking you upwards or downwards? Are they taking you northwards or southwards? Helping them to analyze their relationships and to draw support, to draw from the benefits of peer support can be very helpful in building their resilience. And the other one is also positive social behavior. So any interventions that focus on positive peer relationships or positive peer supports, positive social behavior in terms of what's really acceptable in society, helping them to see that negative behavior carries consequences. Any sort of interventions that focuses on that, it's very helpful in helping them to build resilience. And as I was thinking about this, I was thinking about the many things that communities can do. I was thinking about how we can even introduce this to some of us who are church leaders, how we can introduce this to when we take young people away over the summer. That's past now, but as we think about the next summers, as we think about the next events for our young people, what are the things that we can actually do? What activities can we design that can help them to focus on positive peer relationships, but also to help them to focus on positive social behavior? So it's a world of opportunities when one really thinks about all of this. So thank you for all the comments that have been made, and I'm aware of them, and I'll come back to them during the question and answer time. But I'm really happy that we are making this interactive. And right, so what else can parents do? What else can parents do in terms of helping young people to be resilient? So, and this is not my content. This is from somebody who is a guru in the field, Dr. Caroline Leaf. I'm sure that a lot of us know about Caroline Leaf and all the work she's done in neuroscience, neuroplasticity, and all that. So this is content from from Dr. Caroline Leaf, and it's actually the video where this was summarized from is titled "How to Raise Resilient Kids." It's one of our videos within the last month or so. So if you go on our website and you Google that and you search that, it's how to raise resilient kids. So basically, 3 things she said. 1, be authentic. In terms of children, whether we like it or not, children can read our emotions. And so it's helpful to be able to share age appropriately with them when things are not going right. I've said age appropriately because it's also important to be age appropriate. So we don't want to be spilling our guts to a child who is 2 years old, but it's also important, possibly, age appropriate, to let them know that, oh, Daddy is upset today because Daddy has had some bad news, or Daddy is feeling pressure today because Daddy has a lot of work to cover and there's a deadline that he needs to meet. So it's very important for us to be authentic, because when we are authentic with our emotions, it helps the resilience of our children, because they know that it's actually okay to be authentic. It's actually okay. So 1, it's being authentic, admitting to our challenges, saying sorry when appropriate, and hello, sirs and mas. I know I can see some young adults in the room are smiling at me because they know where I'm going to next. The reality is that, let's face it, as African parents, we are not so good at doing that. You know, I didn't say that to my mother. I didn't say that to my father. How can you be talking? And we start talking about how we had the relationship we had with our parents, when in reality, some of them are done and dusted. They've done their bit and they are gone. Mine have. But the reality is that we are not raising them in the age that we grew up. So it's important to be humble enough and to be vulnerable enough to say sorry to our children when we miss it. It's part of being authentic. It's part of being authentic. And it's part of helping them also to develop their own resilience and to operate an open door policy where, when they feel hurt. And these are not things that I'm plucking from books. These are real life experiences. I speak to young adults. I speak to children routinely. It's an everyday, it's not an everyday occurrence, but an every week occurrence. And one of the themes I hear often is that, 1, my parents don't understand me, or that my parents never say sorry. And by the way, for the African parents who are on the group, there are quite a lot of TikTok. If you go on TikTok and you see what's on there about us, you will marvel. So it's important that we bear that in mind, to have an open door policy, because if we are not open, if those emotions are there anyway, and if the children are not in a place where they feel able to discuss those things with us, they will bottle them up. They will discuss them with somebody, or they will process them in their own way. And the other thing, that is recommended is that not to hide our emotions, to be able to share it with them, because children are good at reading body languages. And the thing about it is, when they read the body language and you don't tell them what's happening, or you don't give them an hint, what they do is that they internalize it and assume that they become guilty because they take responsibility. One of the things that has been said over and over again and plays out in couples that are sadly going through a divorce or separation is that if the children are not appropriately kept informed, age appropriately, I keep referring to that, and if they are not supported through that process, what a lot of them end up thinking is that the reason why daddy and mommy are separating or the marriage didn't work is because I did something wrong. I know it sounds far-fetched, but this is something that is established, that children actually hold themselves responsible. So that's the import of some of these things that we are talking about tonight. The other thing is to be a good role model of managing your emotions. If we fly off the handle when things go wrong and we are not able to manage our emotions well, children will think that it's okay to fly off the handle when things go wrong. And it may be that we inherited those things because that's the way our parents dealt with situations. That's the way we grew up. But the good thing is that we can learn to do things differently. And the other other point, which is not part of Caroline Leaf's points, which is part of the point that I'm adding to it, is that also we need to help our children to name their emotions and to manage their emotions when they're in distress. So to help them to name those emotions, but also to manage those emotions when they are in distress. So those are the things that we can do: being authentic, sharing with them age appropriately, saying sorry when we need to say sorry, being a good role model of managing emotions and helping them to name their own emotions and to manage it. And the reality is that if we're able to manage emotions at stressful periods, that's half of the resilience job done already. So let's just go on to, right. So this slide is really about managing emotions. It's about, and these things are so key. I mean, in my team, for instance, we run a group for adults called Managing Emotions Group or Understanding Emotions Group. That's how key these things are, because somehow maybe those people have missed out on it whilst they were growing up for one reason or the other. That is not a fault of their own, because if our children don't know some of these things, it's not a fault of theirs. It's actually the responsibility lies with the parents. So at some point, so managing emotions, these are different types of emotions. There are about 40 or 46 of them or so on the slide. And like I said earlier, that even as adults, we still have challenges with managing our own emotions or naming our own emotions. And that's the other thing among ethnic minority people of color. We are not always able to articulate our feelings or our thoughts or our emotions. And this is a plethora of different emotions that we can go through. So how do we make sense of this? How do we help children, and how do we use this for ourselves as well, to be able to name what's going on for us and to be able to understand what's going on for us, to be able to share it with somebody? Because, for instance, if I'm feeling angry from work, maybe there's a deadline that's been moved, or something, I've gone for a mental health assessment, it hasn't gone right, or I've just had a very difficult day, I've had so many things go wrong, it's been so stressful, and I'm just drained. I'm feeling drained. I'm feeling emotionally exhausted. Maybe I'm feeling I'm feeling a bit guilty, or I'm feeling confused, I'm feeling defensive, and I come home and I don't share any of that with my spouse, none of that. And I just business as usual. And suddenly she asks me, oh, what would you like for dinner? The reality is that if those have not been shared with her, because there's still that anger, those unresolved emotions, you are likely to take it out on the wrong person, and it's usually the person who is the next person who comes in line. So it's always important to bear these things in mind. So it's not just about naming our own emotions, but also helping our young people to name their own emotions. So really, a very good loose framework to do that is this. Emotions can be broadly grouped into two. There are two ways we could group our emotions. One of them is Are we feeling highly aroused? Is it high in terms of high emotions, or is it low in terms of low arousal? That's one. So, and we'll come to that. We'll go back to the listing again in a minute. So it could be high arousal and low arousal. High arousal is something that is upbeat. When you are feeling energetic, maybe you are happy, you are joyful, you are feeling on top of the world, or you are feeling angry, or you are feeling excited. All of those, feeling joyful, all of those are high, they are upbeat. But if you are feeling low, if you are feeling stressed, is high arousal. So what sort of arousal state are you in? Is it high or low? Low is like feeling chilled out, feeling peaceful. I mean, the way I describe low arousal emotion is, imagine yourself on your choice holiday resort and with a glass of your choice drink. My own choice drink is virgin pina colada. That's something that I will sign up for any day, and I like it. Having it whenever and wherever and whenever. So imagine you are lying on the beach, you are chilled out, you are looking at the tides going and come out, going and come back, and you are looking at the rustling of the leaves. You are listening to the natural music by the birds. Just think about how peaceful and relaxed you are then. That's when you are in the zone. You are just chilled out. That's a low arousal state. That's the difference. One is this high arousal. So how are you feeling at the moment? Sweetheart, describe to me how you are feeling now. Do you feel, just try and articulate, put those thoughts into words for me. So you can help them to be able to discern whether it's high or low arousal. But the other thing you can also help them to discern is this a positive emotion or a negative emotion? Positive emotion, of course, joy, we know is positive. Peace, feeling peaceful, feeling chilled is positive. But how about things like feeling defeated, feeling a feeling of grief, feeling a feeling of loss, feeling jealous, feeling irritated, feeling lost, feeling helpless? All of those are not particularly positive emotions, or feeling envious. But it's important. So this is the simple way we can help children and also help ourselves to break down emotions. And the reality is that when we begin to operate this framework, we automatically become more aware of what's going on for us. Because one of the big challenges in this matter is that many times those emotions are going on for us and we are not even aware they are running the show. We are not aware. So I've left the office, I've left the clinic, I'm still, I've got all that stress. I'm still bringing it all the way, 40 minutes drive home. It's still with me. I'm still processing it. I'm thinking about what went wrong. Why did that happen? Or why didn't somebody make a phone call? How did we miss that? And all of that is still going on. And I'm not even aware of all the different emotions going on for me. And that happens all of the time. So it's very important for us to be able to be aware of those emotions, but also to be able to name them. So that's a good framework to be able to. And usually when this is a full exercise on its own, usually it's incorporated into managing thoughts. The tripart care, when we talk about managing toxic thoughts, that's an exercise that people go into, and it's usually a very engaging one. Right. So now we've moved from children to adolescents. Now we are moving to adults. So what do we know about resilience in adults? We are still going back, we're still referring to the study from Mount Sinai. So one, we do know that people who are optimistic, who see life as glass full rather than glass half full rather than glass half empty, tend to be more resilient than people who see the life as a half empty one. So basically, people who have an optimistic, positive attitude towards life, and there is no blaming here. Every mindset that we end up with is as a result of things that have happened. We don't just end up being suddenly optimistic or end up being suddenly pessimistic. It's because life experiences have taught us like that. But the good thing is that we can rewrite that. And literally, when I say we can literally rewire circuits in our brain because of the choices of thoughts that we dwell on. So being optimistic is pro resilience, active coping. Active coping is about planning and taking steps ahead of time, ahead of the crisis. And that's something that also we as Africans and we as Black people and also we as Christian people don't like to do. People of faith as well. I know that a lot of people, oh yeah, everything is going to be all right. Everything is going to be all right. Let's not just go there. Let's just keep coasting and expecting the best and not putting any plans in place. But actually, active coping by planning for the rainy day is actually a good thing. And really, it's also scriptural. There's nowhere where the Bible says that it's all going to be smooth sailing all the days of our lives. It says that there will be challenges, but we'll overcome. So just for those who might want to contend that in terms of the doctrine. So it's important. Active planning is something that is also associated with resilience. And social support, being vulnerable enough to ask for help when it's necessary, it's important. And then also having a sense of purpose. So sense of purpose in terms of even all of this. And when we think about where does faith come into this is where faith comes in. That actually I'm here on an assignment, I'm here on a purpose. These are hurdles and these are growth. They are challenges, whatever it is, whether it's a loss or a job loss or whatever it is, whatever the threat or the trauma or the stresses, that this is for a short period, but also it's building something in me. There's something that there's a benefit from this, and that I see a grand scheme. I see a big picture because I do know that God is in charge of my life, that all of this will work together. And when I see the good picture, when I see the bigger picture, I would actually see that it's a beautiful picture, even though I cannot make sense of it now. So problem solving, we've talked about problem solving. Communication skills is another one. Communication skills is another. Those are things that are pro resilience in adults. And of course, the other thing is actually that if some of these things are missing significantly enough and there has been a threat, a major threat or trauma that is impacting us negatively enough, that is affecting our day-to-day functioning, it's okay to ask for professional help. And that's also something that was flagged up in that study, that actually people who then become vulnerable enough to say, actually, I need professional help. I need to see a counselor. I need to see a therapist. I need to see a psychiatrist. Actually, when they go through that process, they come out becoming more resilient from the experience than people who don't when they do need to. So the 6 R's of resilience, the 6 R's, that's to do, it's very, I like the fact that it's all 6 R's, and it's a model done, it's a model proposed by the Red Cross. So this is, and they've got a very good toolkit. It's called the Red Cross Self-Kindness Toolkit, which is where this is from. And it's also in the references that have that's at the end of the talk. It's a good one to really refer to because it's very practical. It is very hands-on and very practical. So what does the 6 R's entail? We've already talked about. So if you're thinking about building resilience, what are the things you need to be looking at, and what are the components of it? One is responsibility, and I think we've talked about that today, that what are the things that are within my control? It's true that every other thing might not be the way my children behave or the way my wife behaves. I can't control them. It's not within my control. But what's within my control? One of the things that is within my control, just like it was said earlier by Dr. Adesina, in terms of what do you do if things are within and out of your control, in terms of the way a child behaves or the way a spouse behaves. One of the things that are within my control is the way that I respond to that, the way I manage my own emotions when I'm aggravated or agitated. That's within my control. And that's something that I can actively work on in terms of responding. And even though that is not directly changing that other person, it can change the outcomes in a positive way, in the direction that I want it. So responsibility, in terms of responsibility of the concentrating on the things that I can do, change, but also concentrating on my own welfare in terms of how I respond in times of crisis, making sure that I don't get hard on myself when things get hard. So that's for responsibility. Reflection is really about what's the big picture here? What could be a life lesson here? How can this crisis actually turn out for better things? And whilst we're on that point, Tripart Care Emotional Wellbeing Hub was actually birthed during the lockdown. It was because there were several calls I was receiving, and I was also reading posts on Facebook, and a particular post by one of my friends actually then triggered me, and I thought, oh, this is now time that I need to take action. So think about, I mean, it may be, think about at least one single person might have taken something from the last 3 or so years now, or 2.5 years since we've been running these hubs. Somebody must have taken something from it that has impacted their life positively. But that came from the pain of the lockdown. It came from the crisis of the lockdown. So reflection is about what are the silver linings on this cloud, and trying to list those down and focus on those. And also about what is this doing in me? What are the emotions that is generating for me? And being able to name those emotions and to manage them. And then, of course, the next one is relaxation. After I'm aware of those emotions and all that's going on for me, it's interesting that many times when I talk to particularly middle-aged adults who are from our community, and I say, what do you do to relax? Particularly when people are multi-talented, high-achieving, and multi-committed, a lot of people don't, sadly, more middle-aged men than women. They don't, there's no agenda, there's nothing there that's, oh, this is what relaxes me. I do gardening, I go to the gym, I like driving, I just drive to the countryside, or I go on a countryside walk, or I go to the beach. There's nothing like that. It's just if there's no work, if there's no ministry, if there's no structured commitment, life becomes monotonous. There's nothing else. And that's not a safe place to be, because it's only a quarter, it's next door to a disaster, really. So we must all, and maybe some people are here, maybe your take-home challenge will be, what exactly relaxes you? Some people is baking, some people is running, some people is gym, some people is listening to music, classical music, country music. Some people, it's even drawing, painting. What is it for you? Some people is walking. I walk to clear my head. I enjoy, a lot of people know that I enjoy just countryside walking is something that I really enjoy. I enjoy going to the gym as well. Music is something that I also find relaxing. So what is it? And also the sound of nature, the chirping of birds, the sound of running water, all of those things are things that, and of course, when I say music, worship music, particularly for me. So what relaxes you? Because those are parts of, because stress management is a key part of building resilience. So relationships, I've said it earlier, that we need to key into our relationships and know what people bring to the table and what help they're bringing to the table, and to be vulnerable enough to ask for that help, because the complexity of building resilience means that we can't do it by ourselves. We would always need to ask for help, no matter how genetically well-made we are, no matter how well wired our brain circuits are. There's still that bit in which we need to ask for help when it's necessary. Refueling is about the food that we eat. I've also alluded to that earlier, in terms of people tend to begin to skip meals, to eat junk food, not to exercise, to skip sleep, to go on the bender on alcohol, and to use illicit drugs, and to smoke excessively, to do all the things that are toxic to their bodies when they're at periods of crisis. So it's about making those choices, remaining healthy, and also the other thing, continuing to exercise, but also importantly, continuing to maintain a structure. Somebody loses their job and they then start sleeping till 12 noon in the day. because they just feel, what's the point in getting out of bed? There's nothing to get up for. But that is actually destroying structure. And because it's destroying structure, it's actually impacting negatively on mental well-being as well. And obviously, it's not good for resilience. And of course, the next one is recreation, which is about exercise and having fun. What do you do to recharge your batteries? So, who can you turn to? This is a quick video, and I'm hoping that let's reflect on it. Let's think about it and reflect on what the video says. Will I just confirm that everybody can hear that?
Yes.
Brilliant. Good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Brilliant. Good. Thank you.
There's always someone we can turn to for help when we need it. Here's an activity. Always someone we can turn to for help when we need it. Here's an activity to help you remember the people you have around you who can support you. You'll need a pen and paper. Start by drawing yourself in the middle of the paper. Write the names of everyone you could safely ask for support around yourself, starting with the people you're closest to. Draw a line connecting you to them. Ask yourself, how many people do you know? How far away do these people live? How can you contact them? Now, write down all the ways in which they help you and how you help them too. Finally, think about why having connections with others is important and how they help you manage when you feel worried. When you've finished, pause and ask yourself, what have you learned? What might you do differently now you've done this activity?
That's good. Right here. Any thoughts from that? Did anything resonate? Did anything stand out? Okay, I can see somebody's written. Right. Any thoughts from that video in terms of really maximizing the opportunities we have in terms of our social relationships to enhance our resilience? Or any take-home messages? Okay, that's unusual. Okay, right.
It was very helpful video, to be honest. There were a lot of facts that I picked up that some of them I have applied to help myself, and some I've copied and I'm gonna try and apply them.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. That's really helpful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And I can say Mr. D has written that shows the people we hang out with matter. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's also about, yes, the people that we hang out with, what support are they bringing into our lives, and what exactly are they bringing to the table in terms of helping us through the period of crisis. So makes you reflect in general. Okay, yeah, I agree. Years ago, and I'm still trying to find the article. Years ago, I wrote an article on notes on Facebook on 10 different types of friends that you should have, and it's an article that I'm still looking to find and to look at the source again, because I think it's as relevant as it was then as it is now in terms of really what do we need from people in our lives, and how can they help us to achieve our goals and to cope with the crisis of life. And this is something that I've been meaning to say. I might as well say it now. So in terms of what are the, and I'd like to hear from us, what are the things that are most constant in life? What are the things that we know that they are constant? They are not going to change. Please type in the chat. Just what are the things that we feel they're almost constant? Okay, so stress, yes, stress, yeah, values, okay. Okay, somebody said death and taxes. Yes, if we all live long enough for a lot, I mean, if we're around here long enough, at some point. Feelings, okay, changes. I like that. Thank you. That's thank you. Changes, age, yes, age, absolutely. Hopeful, family and close friends. Okay. Hopefully, family and close friends. Yes. Yeah. Thank you for all that. And please keep them coming. Goals. Yes. We yeah, depending on who is the person setting the goals. So goals are things that we should continue to set. The word I was actually looking for was change. One of the most constant things in life is change. That as long as we are here, change is something that we'll have to deal with. It's going to, is the change is the only thing that is almost permanent. Apart from, obviously, there are certain things that we know. I mean, for instance, people of faith, people who are Christians know that God's love is unchanging. But when it comes to the environment that we live in, change is something. So we might as well begin to train our children and ourselves to expect that change is part of life. And that's one message that is really hot. That's something that I really think that needs to be passed on to the next generation, in terms of the fact that change is something that needs to be embraced. Thank you for that. Change is something that, yeah, it's an inevitable thing. One of the reasons why I showed the first video, the one about COVID, was because at the time when that video was recorded, partly recorded, I mean, it was recorded in 3 different places. Everyone, because obviously it was during COVID, so we couldn't all come together and record videos. Mine was in my home, and I think Tim Campbell's home must have been in his office. I'm not sure where Boachi, probably in our office as well. But the reality is that at that time, I looked at that video today and I'm thinking, look how far we've come since that video was recorded. Look how far we've come. Today, we don't even, lockdown is no longer as strong in our vocabulary as it was before. So and at that time, it looked like the world was at a standstill. The point I'm trying to make is that it's important to pass this on to the younger generation. I can see there are a lot of parents in the house, grandparents, mentors, coaches, about the fact that change is something we should embrace and see the positive bits, and that's part of being resilient. So that was a bit of a preach, but I hope I'll be pardoned. Preachers find it difficult not to preach sometimes, but there you go. It's part of being resilient. All right. Okay. So I'm still trying to understand how to find my place when I've okay. So the circle of resilience, I think we've more or less gone through this what do you call it already, this exercise already. But it's about really, when we are confronted with challenges, being able to write down the things that are what is it that really worries us about this. Somebody's lost their job. Is it because you are worried about the mortgage? Is it about the children's school fees? Is it about being able to support your parents? Well, and let's list all of those things down. List them, everything, every single thing. What is it that worries you about this challenge, about this threat, about this trauma? What is it that worries you about it? Then draw 2 circles, 2 concentric circles like this one. One small circle in the middle, and then a larger circle around it. In the larger circle, in the smaller circle, put the things that are out of your control, the things that you can't change. I mean, none of us here can change the Bank of England interest rates. Or I'll be glad if there's somebody in this room who can, because who knows who the juggernaut in the room is. So I better not say that. I don't know who is in the room. But the reality is that most of us do blogs on this call, probably have no influence over the Bank of England rate, but we have influence over our spending. We have influence over the things we commit our money to. We have influence over how much we save. We have influence over how much we give. We have influence over the things, the way we can deal with our disposable income. So the question is, so putting in the inner circle the things that we don't have control over, but in the outer circle the things that we have control over, and then rating all the things that are in the outer circle, then we rate them in the order of importance, 1 to 10, with 1 being the least important or the least visible, and 10 being the most important or most visible. So in that outer circle, let's then rate, maybe there are 5 things there, we rate them, and the one that has the highest score is the one that we need to take on first. Think of one thing you can then do to immediately change that, or that you can progressively be doing to change that. Usually when the sunshine, when artificial light shines on my nose, for some reason it begins to itch. I'm still trying to find out why that is. Maybe one of my psychiatric colleagues in the room or my neuropsychiatric colleagues in the room can come up with an explanation to that. Right. So that's in terms of, that's an exercise, and that's an exercise we can do with children as well, in terms of helping them to build their resilience. That there's an exam coming, you are preparing for your GCSEs, you're preparing for your A-levels, or you're preparing to go into university, or you're preparing to start your first job, and you're anxious about it. Will I get along with my team? Will the people like me? Do I have enough practical knowledge now that I'm going to have to use that knowledge? All of those things, write them down, putting them into the inner or the outer circle. They can do, they can control, and they can't control circle. They can't control circle in the middle, and they can control circle outside. And then list each of those things. What are the things that you can control? What's the most important of them, by scoring them 1 to 10. And then after scoring them, which is the one that the highest of them is the one you want to take on, and what can you do? What's the single next thing you can do to change that? And you then walk through that list in the order of importance. It sounds very simplistic, but it would, one, you are building your resilience, you are helping children to build their problem-solving skills, but also you're also enhancing their sense that they can do things, that they can cope with challenges, and they can actually do things to change the climate and to change the terrain. So what are the 4? This is really like a summary slide of all the things that have been. This is like a summary slide of all the things that I've been saying earlier. Am I still sharing? So I was talking about, this was the summary slide I was on, in terms of, so what are the 4 things that, so how do you boil all of this down to 4 simple things? If one was to talk about what exactly, stripping it to the barest bones, what does resilience, being able to build capacity to bounce back from adversity, what does it entail? 1 is adaptability, the ability to adapt to change. And we've said that change is one of the surest things in life. So helping to share that message with our children from very, very early on, that change is something to be embraced, and that what we need to do is to be adaptable, to see the opportunities in the change. You know, every time there's an economic downturn, there are people who are making millions from it. Every time there's a layoff, there are people who develop, they've been stories of people who are made redundant, and that's how they entered into their purpose. People who, it was because something went wrong. I mean, I've cited the example of tripartite care, and even for mentor into medicine is an expression of my my lack of tolerance of allowing things to go wrong academically. So basically, in my second year in university, I failed my second year exams, and it looked like my world crashed. As an 18-year-old or 17-year-old, I thought the world had come to an end. And there, I think I made a vow to myself that whatever I need to do, I'll do, not only to make sure that I don't experience this again. Obviously, that never happened, but that I'll also help other people to do what's within their capacity to make that happen. That's when the seed of mentor into medicine was sown many years before, maybe 30 years earlier. But it's just about really, it's about really being adaptable, knowing that change can be a positive thing, even negative change, what we perceive as negative change. So adaptability is one of them. Connectedness, that's something we've hammered on repeatedly today as well, in terms of meaningful connections, in terms of who is in your corner and what do they bring. Resourcefulness is about the resources that we can use to support ourselves, and some of those problem-solving skills are things that we can use. And in fact, as I was thinking about this, putting this together, I thought, oh, actually, there's a workshop in this. I think there's a workshop for young adults, particularly. Our young adults are people that need a lot of support these days. I always say this, and I'm going to say it again, that during COVID, the Office of Health Improvement, they kept surveying the population and looking at the impact of the impact of the lockdown on well-being. And one of the things they found was that the young adults between the ages of 18 and 35 were the most adversely affected in their mental well-being as a result of the lockdown. And many times, you know, when we think about children, we don't think about them because they're not children. But the reality is that in actual sense, neuroscience doesn't say that their brain has stopped growing. We know that our brains continue to grow into their mid-20s and sometimes actually to our late 20s. And in fact, that some of the executive functions that are really very important, some of the decision-making circuits and all of that can still continue to grow to that point. So really, the point I'm trying to make to those who are adults and who are parents and grandparents on this call today is that let's look out for our young adults as well. When we talk about children, let's include them. Not that we are being derogatory towards them, not that we are being condescending towards them, but let's also realize that they still have emotional and well-being needs that we can support them with. So, and the final one is that having a healthy structure. In the time of crisis, structure is usually the first thing that goes, but really some sort of normalcy, like Tim Campbell said. He said the little things, in the time of crisis, that having some control over little things can really be huge, because that's something that you feel a sense of worth about, that you can control. So helping them to stick to routine as well can be a very healthy thing. So that's the tripart care mental health management model. It speaks for itself, but basically, if you were to think about managing your mental health and managing stress, that's a good model to use. And the reason why it's particularly good, I think, in my view, for this audience, is because it also factors in trust, which is the spiritual model of managing stress or managing your mental health. And another point in terms of how does faith help with resilience, is that for the inner circle where we don't feel we have control over, faith can affect that area, because faith in a God that cares about us and that loves us and that wants the best for us can be a way of dealing with that inner circle, that the things that we can't change, that we have a God who can change that. So that's where faith can work. That's where prayers can work as well. That's where because one of the things I said was that I was going to talk about where faith plays into all this. So that's, and also that the bigger picture is good. I may not see it now, but my faith lets me know that it's always turned out right, and it's going to turn out right again, because God has my back. So that's the only one I'll focus on today. Each one of them is a seminar on their own, really. And some of them we've talked about managing your temple, for instance, the body. Managing your time, that's another huge thing. I think there's a time management workshop in the making. And then managing trauma. Managing trauma is really acknowledging the traumas and seeking help for it. And managing treasures is about what are we bringing to the table, what I'm playing to my strength, even in times of adversity. And I always do on doing the personality test. And the 2 personality tests that are free that I recommend would be 16personalities.com and viacharacter.com. Both of them are in the slide. Both of them are in the reference slide, which is coming up very soon. So that's pulling that 60, that table. When you pull it together into a diagram, that's what it looks like. And this is the tripart care 60 module of managing mental well-being. That's what it entails. And really, when we do the young adults workshop, that's what we do. That's what that work. So this is what the tripart care model is hinged on. That's the bedrock, the foundation of the model in terms of looking at mental well-being. Yeah, that we can skip. That's really about managing our time. And 6 simple evidence-based stress management models. Like I said, a key part of resilience is being able to manage stress per time, what's happening now. So things like controlling our screen time. There are some apps you can install. I always joke about somebody I listened to said, this was actually a pastor, he said, he knew that his screen time was becoming toxic, and what he did was that he installed one of these apps, and you know there's a code to what the one he installed was one which he needed a password. So after maybe several hours, after 2 hours or so of screen time, the screen would time out, and that means he's not able to access any of those apps. And what he did was that in order to really hold himself accountable, he asked his wife to decide the password to the app, so that anytime his phone screens out, what he has to do is to really be able to have a chat with his wife, and they can then jointly decide that actually should you be having extra additional screen time or not. I mean, it sounded draconian, but sometimes huge challenges like that could need some very firm boundaries. That was a firm boundary he was putting in place for himself to make sure that he wasn't spending too much screen time at the detriment of other things in his life. Keeping a gratitude journal, setting reminders for breaks, stretches, and hydration. On that note, I'm taking a sip of water. And I put getting professional help in red because it's one of my key messages for today. Really, that sometimes some of us might not be able to get to the point of optimal resilience until we address unaddressed trauma. And that's by getting professional help. It could be through a counselor, it could be through a Christian counselor, it could be through statutory services, it could be through speaking to your GP to refer you. But it's important to ask questions and ask help and get help. So finally, this is the final slide before the summary, before the resource slide. Basically, managing stress per time as part of building resilience involves 4 things. 1, to control exposure to the triggers. There are some triggers we can control exposure to. So sometimes really resilience is about really, if we can control it, not getting into that situation, like doing the things that we need to do. Reappraising the stress and our coping. We've done that by reappraising the way we think about the stress, the sort of help that we obtain from others, enhancing our problem-solving skills. We've done a problem-solving exercise, and then enhancing our coping skills, really in terms of how we manage our body, how we manage our temples, how we manage our time, how we manage our treasures. We are all in doing that. We're enhancing our coping skills because we're helping to put ourselves, our mind and our spirits and our souls in a place where it can be more equipped to cope with those challenges. And finally, that's the resource slide. That's self-care tool is the self-care toolkit. It's actually self-kindness toolkit by Red Cross. It's one that comes highly recommended. It's a 20-page PDF document, but it's full of really practical skills. One of the ones we did from problem solving was from there, but there are several others. Decision making is there. There's one also on there's one on decision making. There's one on problem solving, and there's one on also generally about the model for building resilience. And the other one is also wearebeyond.com. That's also it's also a PDF document of a few pages. And the 16personalities.com is one that it's a free online personality assessment tool, and it will give you a printout when you've answered the questions. And VIA character is value inspired assessment character test. So it's not about character, actually. It's really about what makes us tick, what motivates us, what are our strengths, and how do we bring that to our best self. And I've talked about Caroline Leaf's YouTube video channel on how to raise resilient kids. And of course, our Tripod Care YouTube channel is there. and this video will be uploaded onto that. And B, who is my able assistant and who has been co-hosting with me today, will be uploading. That will be putting that in the chat to show us, to let us know the address for the YouTube channel, Tripath Care. If you type in Tripath Care on YouTube, it will bring us up, and you can subscribe to the channel if you so that you don't miss any uploads. And the other thing that I sometimes forget to share is that we also have a WhatsApp support group where we share bite-sized information of this sort, any relevant thing. Usually I'm always scoring the internet for things that can help for emotional well-being. And if you take a photo of that, it will take you to the WhatsApp channel, and you can ask to be added to the group. It's a safe, sensitive, supportive space where things are done in a supportive way. We signpost, and we also have regard for your spiritual beliefs, and particularly for your Christian faith. And we also can signpost confidentially to people who are seeking help. So I think those are my contact details. And at this point, I am keen to take comments, take questions. And whilst we are doing that, I will start looking through the chats to make sure to look at the chats and see what we've got on there. Thank you all for listening, and thank you for your contributions as well. We are not finished yet.